See where we go. So welcome everyone. Welcome Fran. I'm just over the moon to be having the conversation with you today.
Thanks, Meg.
It's exciting. So I would like to introduce who you are for those of you who may not have heard of you. Just give a little bit of an introduction to who you are and your amazing contributions to the coaching profession.
Thank you.
So Fran Fisher is an MCC who is based out in the area of Seattle, Washington, United States. However, she's known all over the world. She is internationally known not only as a coach, but as a leader, a visionary, and an author, a speaker. She specializes in providing coaching for leaders who really want to make a change and transformation, not only in their lives, but impacting our world. And she also is an experienced mentor and assessor, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Fran received the Lifetime Achievement Award in 2012 from the Washington State ICF chapter. And she's also recognized as, I heard her name, I don't know how many years before I actually met you, Fran, but I heard about you as one of the pioneers and champions of our coaching profession. So you were there when coaching was just a seedling,
Yes. Yes.
growing into what we now have and is continuing to evolve. And Fran was actually you were the founding ICF executive board member, I believe,
Right.
when ICF first started and took root. She started the credentialing program, which we all know is essential for our programs to get trained as credentialed coaches. She was the first executive director for the Association of Coach Training Organizations, which is known as ACTO. And she's been serving as an ICF, PCC, and MCC assessor since 1998. So you've been at it a while.
Very beginning.
I know, which is so exciting for our topic of mastery, because I know that that's something that you are passionate about and committed to. So in 1991, Fran founded the Living Your Visions, or LYV. It's a process for empowering individuals in transforming their vision into reality. In 97, she founded the Academy for Coach Training, one of the first ICF accredited ACTP programs. She lives near Seattle. When she finds some leisure time, I know because she's so busy with so many other projects, but she loves to do ballroom dancing. I know you're a big hiker, and yeah, it's just, we'll see you on Dancing with the Stars one day.
Oh, yeah, right.
And she and I share a passion for walking along the water or the ocean and hiking. Of course, you've done the Camino, which is right on my doorstep here.
That's right.
In Portugal, and I haven't done it yet, so you're my inspiration one of these years. But it is really my pleasure to welcome Fran to our conversation about mastery and to a contributor to the Wisdom Library.
Thank you, Meg.
Yeah, and don't let me forget to mention about the Portable Mentor. We do want to put something of a link that will be a resource for people on the path to MCC, which is what this program is designed for. That it's such a valuable program. I know I get a lot out of it to
Thank you.
Deepen the understanding about the competencies. And I know that's another thing that you and I share as a passion, and what connected us was just that exploration of the competencies at the masterful level. And what does that look like? What does it feel like? And that's what I hope we can explore today in our conversation.
The big mystery.
I know it is sometimes. It seems elusive, but
yes.
Yeah. So trying to kind of get things that perhaps are a little more tangible or a little bit realizing what it is and the journey to greater mastery, which I know you and I continue on that journey.
That's right.
Every day. Yeah. So thank you.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. This is my favorite subject, so I'm happy to be here and see what I can do to contribute.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to do is we have a series of questions that we have been exploring together, and I'd like for us to just kick it off with the biggie, the big question of,
Okay.
from your perspective, how do you define masterful coaching?
Well, thank you for sharing this question in advance, because I had to give it considerable thought because it is the elusive mystery. And what comes to mind first as an initial response is, what is coaching?
Mm.
What is coaching?
Wow. Yeah.
Never mind masterful.
Great question.
So, yeah, without going into this, the story in itself is fun to share. I did find a definition for coaching that has been the inspiration for me, and my signature and my relationship to coaching. So I want to start there in response to your question. My definition of coaching is that coaching is the sacred space of unconditional love, where learning, growth, and transformation naturally occur. So I took that definition to my school that I ran for about 10 years and subsequently sold. I've been in private practice since 2006.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's there as a context for everything that I do and share. And that sacred space of unconditional love is all about acceptance and no judgment, suspending judgment. It just, and in the space of no judgment, our clients feel safe enough to do their work.
Yes.
And that's why I say learning, growth, and transformation naturally occur in that safe space, right? So that's the overarching context.
Wow.
Masterful coaching, I've given a lot of thought to that in the last few years as well, because I attract clients to mentor for their advanced levels,
yes,
for their accreditation. And I've delivered these mentoring programs in groups and individually for years now. And so I've been in constant inquiry as to how to define masterful coaching. Well, it popped out just about 6 months ago. And now it sits on the cover of my resource manual for the people that I mentor. Okay?
Great. Wow.
So it starts with, as a coach, I am being the space of my client's greatness. So you can see how that comes right out of my definition of coaching. The essence of masterful coaching is a space for the client's greatness and a connection to the whole of who the client is being. The coach lets go and trusts at the level of unconscious competence.
That's beautiful. You got to write that down for us so that we can have that written. That's absolutely
okay.
gorgeous.
I'll send that to you.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm very pleased with it.
That is absolutely fabulous. And one of the things that struck me is I didn't hear any doing in that. There's
great listening, Meg.
And you just captured it so beautifully that it is showing up at that being. It's the state of being.
Yes, the coach's being, as well as being the space for the client's being.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so what we do is facilitate our clients in accessing the essence of who they are, their greatness.
Yeah.
And that's what's empowering and transformational.
But it starts with that essence of being. That's really just, that's a fabulous way of capturing. So thank you for that. In terms of it also occurs to me that because it's a state of being, how might one prepare for that? What are the steps that you have seen support coaches coming into that state of being, or creating that state of being for themselves?
It's doing your personal work. It really is. And when, because I'm one too, so I'm going to speak all right, in response to when I bump up against a challenge in my coaching and who I'm being, noticing what my triggers and how I'm not self-managing them. I look within to see what needs to be cleared, what triggers me, and what will it take to get back to the basics of holding that space, of being curious, that work, doing that work. And that takes working with my own coach. It takes the personal growth study and the work that I do, whatever it is, meditation, learning to get quiet, taking courses that help me deepen my mastery with listening.
Yeah.
All of that, bottom line, it's the personal work.
Yeah.
And getting the support, to do the work.
And my hearing of that is that not only it's not just masterful coaching, because again, that sounds like there are skills and things we're supposed to do, but what I'm hearing from you is that it's a self-mastery journey.
Yes.
As well, of clearing or hearing what's coming up for us, as you say, self-management. And I think that's always the two things that I say often to my mentees is that you're kind of juggling several things at the same time, is holding that sacred space, being fully there and present for the client, but paying attention to say, is that my stuff or is that their stuff? And in that instant, coming back present, knowing that there may be something that's, as you say, triggered you, that, okay, I'm gonna look at that later. Right now, I'm here for this client. I'm coming back.
Well,
or maybe even showing vulnerability to the client at that moment too, right?
So it's the competencies themselves that give us a framework. So we know about questioning, for example. And my challenge is I love to share my stories, and I get feedback consistently that my stories contribute. People hear messages for themselves in my sharing of my life experience and how I responded to those, and I just love to hear myself talk. Right? So the fact that there's and you'll discover that as we go through this conversation. So the fact that there is a competency called powerful questioning and being curious, I then have a structure to support myself to, okay, and so taking on a practice like noticing when I want to share, I relate. You want to hear my story? And catch myself and practice that practice of catching myself and going, okay, Fran, notice, pause, ask the client a question. And notice how it calms me down when
your energy shifted completely.
Yeah. So it's the both and, Meg, which I think you pointed to a moment ago, is the structure and the art and the intentionality of self-management, self-awareness, and through that awareness, making a more powerful choice, a more empowering choice,
Hmm.
in the moment.
And
So it's managing all of that.
yeah. And I know that there are a couple of things that are coming up. Thank you so much for this. It's stimulating a lot of things for me too. That one of the things I think that I learned early on from several of my coaches and mentors was to slow my pace. Because you know me well, and I'd love to I'm an expressive person as well. I'm an extroverted thinker. When I really am in that presence of creating that sacred space and I bring that being and intentionality that you talk about, I notice that I almost put myself on, those slow records, putting it really slow it down. And by doing so, what happens? Creates more space for the client, of course.
Yes,
But it
yes.
gives me the moment, those nanoseconds for self-management that I can breathe. And there's nothing wrong with leaving some space.
Oh, it's at the masterful level, at the MCC level, if you will, we're as assessors, one of the things we're watching for is spaciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Spaciousness around the client's thinking,
Yes.
processing, speaking, and good use of silence, right?
Yeah. So if you slow it down, I think it gives more time for when those things and pay much more attention to your physical reactions, the emotional reactions. So you can say, okay, is this something that I want to invite the client to explore? Is this something that I ask to share? Is this something I let go of and deal with later? Because there's that other bit of the competencies of non-attachment, not being attached.
Yes.
And so balancing, I think it is a balancing act. With practice, you get to that place where you mentioned a few moments ago, that unconscious competence.
Exactly.
And it becomes more of a habitual, so it is a state of being. Like I said, I put
And that,
myself on that channel.
and that requires trust in the process, trust in self. You'll get a kick out of this. I know when I'm coaching, at least I believe, I sense that I'm coaching masterfully when I have this feeling of free falling. I am so out of my head. I'm not thinking at all, and the questioning and the responses are coming at that level of unconscious competence. And that feeling of free falling has a visual to it. You'll love this.
Yeah.
So what I see in my mind's eye, is Alice floating down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, that's good.
Floating down, and I first had that experience with my one of my earliest. Laura Whitworth was my second coach. Uh, Henry House was my first coach.
Wow.
And Laura would start asking me questions right at the beginning, and it wasn't what I wanted to talk about in my coaching session. It wasn't what I brought. I would share a story about what had transpired in the interim,
Yeah.
and she started coaching on my story. And I would feel myself falling down, and I would see floating down the rabbit hole, just like Alice. And my mind was going, but wait a minute, I didn't want to go here. And I was having this love-hate relationship with what was happening, because the questions she was asking me, I was loving what was opening up. But my mind was kicking in with, but I wanted to talk about something else. And what happened when I let go as the client was I got to what I wanted to accomplish. And the lesson I learned from that is all roads lead to transformation.
Wow.
It's all connected.
Yeah. So wasn't that the questions that she was asking, she was doing what the company says of fully exploring, picking up on what you were saying, but again, allowing you to free fall. How interesting.
And I allowed
Oh,
myself to
great.
freak out because I was loving the nature of the questions. It was a different topic, but I got to where I wanted to get to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know that from experience.
Well, you know it as the client, and I think that's so valuable to experience it as a client as well as to just feel that letting go as you talk about and by experiencing that, you as the client learn to trust the process of coaching.
Yes, yes,
And you start to discover, oh my gosh, there's something inside of me that the brain didn't know about, but something that's bubbling to come out. That client wisdom that we're wanting to shine a light on.
yeah.
Cool. So as a coach, when you're doing that, can you say a little bit more about that masterful feeling for you of that free fall and down the rabbit hole? Because what I think of is Alice and going down the rabbit hole, it was all new. She didn't have a clue where she was going. And
That's right. That's
you
right.
don't
Well, again, it
know.
comes
You don't,
back to
where's your
trust.
plan?
It comes back to allowing and trusting, um, and being curious. Alice was the epitome of curiosity, right?
Yes.
Um, so, um, so being willing. Oh, here's the key. Okay, and this came through lots of personal growth work. I got that the more willing I am not to know,
Mm.
the more powerful my coaching became. Okay, and that came out of a transformational experience of being the expert growing up as a young, in elementary school, high school. I was a 4.0 student.
Mm-hmm.
And my peers would come to me to get help with math, science, whatever. And oh man, especially the boys, when they came to ask questions, I was eating it up like candy. I was getting attention.
Sure.
Right? And so I loved it. And I would have made a great consultant because in life, however, decades later, I discovered coaching. And what happened when I discovered the paradigm of coaching, which is being willing not to know and asking curious questions, what it did was it connected with my deeper essence. And I realized that was ego-based, that behavior. I was feeding my ego, which was needy. The little girl in me was so needy for attention. And so I was feeding my ego by telling my stories, getting the attention. When I got to coaching and connected with that deeper truth that I resonated with at my soul level, that was transformational for me. And the bottom line is be willing not to know, because this then gives me the ability to hold that sacred space with my client and have them be the star, have them. And then it was just so nourishing my soul to see them accessing their greatness and moving out to the front of the stage with the spotlight in them, and me moving back out of the spotlight to the back of the stage and experiencing this soulful, nourishing experience versus the ego.
Yeah.
So I really got that at a very deeply level. Now, for those folks who are listening to this, I get triggered.
So what are some of the things that trigger you? If you will share those with us.
One of those things that triggers me is when I have experience and learning related to the issue that they've brought.
Yeah, yeah.
And I have a really broad base at my elderly years of experience.
I think, and I know for that triggers me as well. And I think, oh, I know, like you said, that kid in class who was overachieving. I know the answer. I know the answer.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And
Well,
that's the immediate reaction is I know. And so what are some tips then for us when that happens, when wait a minute, this isn't about
well,
me.
for
And I
one
need to
thing,
not know.
yeah, for one thing, it's after the coaching conversation and I'm reflecting on woulda, shoulda, coulda, you know, what I've learned is to forgive myself for my humanness. And I'm going to feel a little emotion here. It's just so humbling to be human.
It
Oh my
is.
God. And so then I go into, okay, my client got lots of value. I'm noticing now after the fact, I want to notice more in the moment. That's my intention. And I put myself back into my intentionality. Next time I want to remember, notice when I feel that pull, notice, pause, check in. Is this for me?
Yeah.
Is this me? Who's driving here?
Right.
And sometimes, and then make a choice. And sometimes I just zip my lip, ask that next question or observation, and we move on. And sometimes I ask the client, are you open to hearing? And I offer the choice.
Yes.
Right? So I can make choices in the moment. You know.
And it's so refreshing to hear you with so much experience as a masterful coach to say that those things still come up. And I think that's an important thing for all of us to remember, that the masterful journey it's a journey, and we just keep going. One of the other things I wanted to get back to what you said about the humbling, and I know that this too was a trigger point for me. And I would sit on my hands. That's my signal, is to sit on my hands and kind of bite my tongue, to just shut up now, Meg, wait a minute. And sometimes the clients press you because they know that you have this kind of experience or background, and it's like, just give me the answer. And I would resist that. And here's what humbled me is I would resist. I'd ask another question, invite the client to explore it, what's going on. And I had a series of about 3 or 4 clients who actually came up with an answer so much better than mine could have been.
I know.
And I went, oh, I'm so glad I didn't say mine.
Exactly.
And I thought, thank you, universe, for giving me that message. And so that taught me, keep your mouth shut, Meg. You think you know, but maybe you don't. And that was a big one.
Well, the other trigger for that is the I don't know. When you get an I don't know.
Yes.
And I have different tricks to manage the I don't know. One of them is first one up is just keep my mouth shut.
Yeah.
Say I don't know.
Just leave the silence.
Leave the silence, because there's only one thing they can do in that silence, and that's hear themselves.
That's right.
8 times out of 10, they come up with someone sometimes, but sometimes they really, really, really don't know. And then I pull the card of, let's just have fun with this and use our imagination. And something wild and crazy, won't hold you to it, but I like to say, let's prime the pump here. Let's just get something flowing. So I'll pull that card. Another one is, well, how could you find out?
That's a great question. If
you really don't know, how could you find out? And that is a rich territory to move forward with too. So,
and I can hear in your, sorry to interrupt. I can hear in your energy that just hearing the clients now say, I don't know, excites you. It's not that, oh no, what do I do now? They've said, I don't know. Where's my next question on my list? you're getting interested again, and that going back to that curiosity, going back to the intentionality of
Oh,
partnering for the exploration.
oh, Meg, here's a gem. Here's a gem with that. I don't know. Oh, well, after the silence, and then still, I don't know. What is your relationship to that, that feeling? I don't know. How does that feel when you don't know?
Good.
What's your relationship to that? Is that a pattern in your life that I don't know?
That could be a very interesting because it may be something, as you say, a pattern that that it's coming up frequently. Thank you for that. That had not occurred. Yeah. So opportunities for greater exploration, opportunities to shine light and say, like, I love what you said, let's have fun with it. What's here? And I get back to my thing about that I struggle with sometimes, not being attached, because I'm a problem solver. And it's like, oh, here's a problem you don't know. We're going to find a solution. I want to find a solution. You don't know it's not about finding a solution in coaching. First of all, and secondly, you may not find one, and you may not find one in that. It's not my job to find one, and it may not happen in that session. Something may bubble up for the client the next day, or weeks later, or months later.
At the level of mastery, it's that relates to the presenting issue. Okay, the presenting issue is never the real issue. We're all aligned on that one.
Yes.
And the temptation is to go right to solution. And so what we want to do at the more masterful level is begin immediately, right in establishing the coaching agreement. We want to begin immediately to help the client explore their relationship to that issue.
Yes. Yes.
Like, who are you being? What are you? Well, a good one is, how are you feeling about that situation? Mm-hmm. Immediately starts going into the who versus the what. The what is the issue.
Yes. And as soon as you can take them down to what's that about? What's really going on? And it's for me, as you know, I'm passionate about establishing the agreement and really spending the time there, because that word at the MCC skill level, it says fully explore.
Fully explore.
Fully. What does that fully mean? It means to go, you're going to be deep diving. You're going to be falling down like Alice. You may go down the rabbit hole, but trust that somebody has a flashlight in there, or something's going to spark, right? Be willing to just dive in and have fun and explore. Wow.
Yeah.
So, we have so much to cover. We could talk all day on this. But
right.
Are there any other things that come up for you in this beautiful realm of mastery, and how you feel when you're there in that moment? Or do you even feel it in the moment? Or is it something you reflect on later and say, wow?
I mostly feel when I'm not.
Yeah. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Well, I think I did. I can get triggered. I can get pulled to wanting to fix it, like you say, or tell, share an experience, an example. So the moments, I am trained as an assessor. So let me take it from this direction. And I will notice this for myself, certainly when I'm coaching.
Yeah.
So let me kind of shift the direction here. As I'm assessing, and I'm trained to listen for the masterful level, what were some things that we're listening for and watching for, feeling, is the qualitative aspect of how the PCC markers are being demonstrated, how the competencies are being demonstrated. And the qualitative, the coach is relaxed, calm, providing that spaciousness. That takes confidence. It takes being fully present, being there. There's a being with primarily versus a doing to the client. making it happen,
Yes.
pushing, going for a result, problem solving. One thing
Just to
that
be clear, that's not there in the MCC.
it's
That's
not.
there
I
in the
mean,
PCC, but it's not there in the MCC level.
it's what we're listening for. What we want to hear is more the being with the client's relationship to their issue. Who are they being in relationship to? So there's a being, facilitating being, versus the doing to the client.
Yes.
And one of the ways that's tricky, and it's actually a PCC marker, and it's called allowing the client to formulate their own learning. And one of the things that coaches can tend to do sometimes is do the analyzing. Oh, so what you mean is blah, blah, blah. Oh, so what you're saying is blah, blah, blah. That's not allowing or inviting the client to do their own assessing, their own analyzing, their own learning.
Right. So even a simple question of what's here for you? What are you learning about yourself?
Right.
What's coming up for you? Even as short and open as that invites the client to analyze for himself or herself.
And that connects with really inviting and allowing the client to lead the conversation. So that's one example. Another one is, are we heading in the direction you want to go? Is this, where do you want to go from here? Yeah. And it starts, the first opportunity is in establishing the coaching agreement to invite that leading, which is, what do you believe you need to address in order to achieve that outcome? What do you believe you need to address? So what other things are we, being responsive to what the client offers. So that takes really being in the present moment, being responsive to what they offer versus a canned question, canned questioning, more, formulaic. So what happens is when there's a responsiveness, being in the present moment, there's a flow. I like to call it flow.
It is flow. It is definitely.
Yeah. And that's the unconscious competence flowing, flowing with the client. What else are we listening for that really stands out? Oh, the nuance, the level of nuance at the level of mastery. So noticing those subtle shifts in energy. It could be a pattern of an inflection on a particular word, and you notice the pattern. Offer it up, what you're noticing, with an inquiry. What about that? What are you noticing about that, or what are you aware of? Or as I reflect that, noticing what awareness is showing up for you. Yeah. Could be a significant shift in energy. Mm-hmm. You noticed a shift in my energy earlier. Yeah. So when I'm working with mentees on this, building that skill of noticing the energy, what we want to do is not just notice, but have that be an opportunity to invite the client to take a look at, it's an opportunity for them to raise their self-awareness. So I notice an energy shift. Well, what was that smile about? Yeah. You're laughing right now. What's going on for you? Yeah. It's not just noticing the smile or the laughing, or, oh, what just happened there? Or, wow, there's a shift in energy.
But the other thing I'm noticing, Fran, about your questions there, you haven't done any interpretation. You've made no judgments about it. You haven't tried to figure out, why is the client laughing about that? You haven't taken it to that additional level of mental analysis that sometimes we can fall into that trap.
Right. Or make assumptions about it.
Yes.
And ask a question based on the assumption.
Right. So
Right.
it comes back to what you were saying at the very beginning of our conversation about the intentionality of
Yes.
staying in that state of being curious, open, what I call the co-explorer,
Hmm.
partnering in this exploration, but just offering it back to the client. One of the other words you mentioned was that you as an assessor, you're listening for that confidence. So is there anything in the way that the coach is noticing or is inviting awareness that how do you know what confidence sounds like? Maybe that's too esoteric a question, but
Hmm.
you know, or is it a
Well,
feeling?
I know how one
That,
of my mentees I kept giving her feedback on how tentative she was.
okay.
Okay. So her formulating her questions they were out loud processing, and they were very tentative, and she was doing
Okay.
a lot of stacking, and so that's what it's not.
Okay.
So confidence is relaxed, trusting, even if that question that the coach asks maybe doesn't land quite right, or, oh man, let me rephrase that. There's a trusting of the relationship. There's a vulnerability, connecting. You
Right.
know,
And as you say, so offering it up or being curious, inquiring, and if the client doesn't want to go there, it's okay.
that's right.
And it may come up if trust. I also have learned, and I'm sure you have as well, that trusting that if it is one of those little nuggets or one of those little things that we can explore more deeply, it'll pop back up again. Either the word or the energy shift or something that whatever's going on for that client, if it's really meant to show its face in the conversation, it'll
I do trust that. Yes.
yeah, I know.
Uh,
That has helped me a lot to let go of, oh,
Let go. Right.
did I miss something, or I've got to, just, it'll pop back up. Don't worry so
Well,
much. And again, so what I'm hearing from you is that element of confidence that you look for in MCC coaching is that trust in the process,
in the
trusting
process.
in the client, in those states of being. Yeah. What
And I'd
else?
like to get back. Well, there was a point that I thought would be useful to share. We
Mm-hmm.
were talking about reflecting these nuances and energy
Mm-hmm.
shifts and so forth. And what has helped my mentees is some context here. I like to say that raising awareness is job one for a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned in recent times that it's a raising awareness so that for the client, so that they can access their um, their greatness, their strengths, their values. They're raising their awareness so they can access these tools, these self-empowering capacities that they can take forward. So we have this marker, we have this rule, this competency that says notice the energy shift and inquire or explore. Well, how come? I can learn, okay, I have to do this because I have to pass this exam, and so I have to learn to do
Right.
this.
Right.
That's the doing level. The being level is because I'm committed to my client accessing what's within them. That's why I want to and invite their exploration and open up the opportunity for them to take a look. And I find with my mentees that when they understand a context greater than I have to learn and practice this
Yeah.
competency,
Right.
you know,
Right. Yeah. It's
there's
not just ticking a box to ask a
ticking the box.
question.
Right.
It's that delving, and you can use the word, the allowing, and the invitation, and the allowing the client.
It's the why.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the why. Yeah.
Yeah. What's in it for the, I one of the questions that pops for me, or I keep kind of in the back of my mind, is what's in it for the client? Is there
Mm.
anything here for him or her in this moment to shine a light on? as you said, sort of that's the overarching purpose of all of this, is for them to move forward. It's why they came to us in the first place as coaches, right?
Well, it's the work they want to do.
Yeah. And we know from our own personal work, that's not always, number one, it's not always easy. Number two, sometimes it takes several times hitting us over the head before we realize it. Which takes me to one of my other favorite competencies, which is the direct communication of holding that mirror up and trusting that sometimes the client isn't going to get it. Maybe the awareness is only at a certain level in that particular session.
Yes.
In that meeting, for whatever reason, it doesn't matter why, but maybe they're not seeing all that's there, or they're not willing to go to the depths yet. That's
yes.
okay.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I want to meet our clients where they are,
Mm-hmm.
and respect that if they're not ready to go there, let it go. Yeah.
Getting back on this assessment, one of the questions that comes up quite frequently is, do I have to demonstrate all of them? What again, are the assessors looking for me to do the checklist? What if I maybe don't refer to planning and goal setting or something? If we jump right into what's important for the client that day, and we don't really refer to an overall plan.
Okay.
Maybe managing progress is not as tightened up as I would like.
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. And what's so is that at the MCC level and the PCC level, I don't assess ACC, but I can speak to these two specifically, that if it's a not apply, then don't do it to check the box. Yeah. Don't do it. Okay, because it won't be relevant, it won't be appropriate, it won't be, and some of the companies say, if necessary, actually that language is in there. Mm-hmm. So it's about being appropriate, responding to what the client offers, and going with, and so there's that. On the other side, there is, if you're stepping over something that is obviously an opportunity and a critical missed opportunity, that is a ding on the final score, if you will. Yeah. So it's a balance of those two. And we're looking for patterns, folks. Let's say, for example, your questioning, your skill of questioning. And the vast majority of your questions are open-ended. One or two out of all the questions that you ask are closed. And by the way, sometimes a closed question is a powerful question.
Yeah, sure.
So it's not 100% never, never. But anyway, my point is, it's not a deal breaker. We're looking for the patterns. How the patterns show that you've demonstrated the competency. Mm-hmm. It's not a one closed-ended question, as an example, is not a deal breaker.
Right.
I hope that helps.
It does help. It does help, because it may be, if again, what I'm hearing from you is that you take it as a totality.
Right.
At MCC level, you're feeling for the totality of the confidence of the coach, the state of being of the coach, allowing the state of being, creating that space, as you say, allowing the state of the being and the who of the client to show up. If the coach flows with in that way through the conversation, and may or may not, or maybe just touches on something, that's good, because the overall context or the overall totality of the session was masterful. Am I understanding?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, and
yes.
But if it does flow, for example, if you, one of the things that, as I say, like, let's talk about planning and goal setting. If it's in the flow, that something comes up and it relates to what the client has been working on consistently, or, that 2 sessions ago, this same thing popped up, it would be a missed opportunity. It's not about ticking the box for planning and goal setting. It's about missing the opportunity.
Yes, and in support of the client being successful following through. So
Yes.
those last three, I like to say what they're about is supporting the client being successful
That's
following through.
helpful. That's
Yeah.
helpful.
And so, we do have a responsibility. Our job is being the coach, and we do have some
That's right.
responsibility, right, to manage the process,
That's right.
not to force the process. We've gone through all of that. So if the client says, I'm going to do XYZ, okay, great, see ya.
Yeah.
That's a huge missing.
Right. Right. I describe it as sort of the bookends for the session.
Yeah.
That's part of it, that we are sort of holding the reins a little bit more tightly to really go deeply on what is it, why are we here today? What is it that you really want to get to? What's that nugget that we're mining for? And then at the end, that tightening up of those designing actions, managing progress, does it relate to anything else? The whole plan um, is part of our, like you say, that is part of what we are there to do, because otherwise it's just a conversation, maybe a powerful one, but it hasn't moved, it may not move the client forward. So
Well,
thank you for
and
putting it in the
yeah,
overall context of the
yeah,
purpose
and
of those.
yeah, exactly. And checking in on the measure for success at the end
Mm-hmm.
is such a great opportunity to give the client the opportunity to notice their progress. And I like to follow with, and what got you there? What are you noticing
Oh,
about,
great question.
what supported you in moving the needle?
Yeah.
Another opportunity for creating awareness.
Yes, yes. And anchoring that with them.
And anchoring it. I love that word. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it also reinforces for the client that, hey, you've got the resources within you. This was
You
you.
did the work. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. This is I say that I don't know if you say this a lot to your mentees. I always say you're working too hard. If you're doing all the work, you're working too hard. The
That,
client is there to do the work,
yeah.
his or her
Let
work.
the
But
client do the heavy lifting.
absolutely. But it's a way of acknowledging them. It's creating awareness. It's a way of acknowledging them. It's a way of them building in their own resources that they can tap back into later. And
That's
that
right.
they may have just ignored or not taken for granted or just not been aware of, that, hey, you've got this in you to do this when something similar comes up or when this one pops up again.
That's our purpose.
Yeah, championing them. Oh, that's so great. Oh, like I said, we could talk about this all day. Okay, so I'm going to look at my questions here for just a moment. I think we've talked about so much of it. I have a question that, what are the top 3 tips? Are there some things that you see as patterns as a mentor and assessor? Are there some things that you have seen as patterns that you would say, okay, here are some things to look out for, and here are some tips that I have for you as you are applying for your MCC credential?
I'm finding that there are 3 standout for me in the mentoring that I've been doing the last, actually, since the PCC markers came out. And by the way, you and I were both on the committee
Yes.
that helped to create those
Right.
and launch them. So we go way back with those. And what has come to our, that was all about PCC at the time.
Mm-hmm.
What's happened now, the impact on MCC assessing is now we're realizing that the markers form the basic structure of a powerful conversation.
Yes.
And so the MCC then becomes the qualitative aspects that we're looking for in the demonstration of the science, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
of that the markers bring,
Right.
to the table. So having said that, the 3 things that stand out for me, the 3 tips are: 1, establishing the coaching agreement bears a lot of learning and practice and deepening your skill set. at the level of mastery. And so my recommendation is that you intend to help the client get to that deeper underlying the presenting issue right from the start. There's, with beginning coaches, there's been, I've discovered some kind of belief that I have to get establishing the coaching agreement out of the way so I can get to the coaching.
I know.
The bottom line is establishing the coaching agreement is the coaching, so much so that done well, there's not much more to do, because the coach is processing through this deepening questioning of discovering the underlying issue.
Yes.
And then and that process takes, questioning what's important, what's meaningful to you about gaining that outcome, and then establishing the measure for success.
Yeah.
Based on that really core issue. And then so much work has been done that the rest of it just flows.
Amen. And the designing actions may just flow.
Yeah.
If they're that motivated, jazzed about it, they go, oh, I can do this and this and this and this. Amen. You are singing my song. And
I have an example. Okay. This
good.
was yesterday, working with a mentee. I was listening to his recording and then we debriefed it. And his client said, what I want is a solid plan. And what caught the coach's attention was that word solid seemed really important and significant. So he questioned that. And what came out of that was, as the coachee was sharing, he realized what his real deeper outcome was that he wanted. He said, I want to have a clear understanding of what gets in the way of taking that first step toward a plan.
Ooh.
It always stops me, that first step. But the key word there was clear.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much understanding, because that's usually the
Yeah.
booby prize, we all
Yeah.
know that. But what stood out was clear, and what my mentee missed was that, and he stayed with the original and took the conversation forward.
Yeah.
And so I was showing him that the client told you the underlying. He wanted a clear understanding. So you could have asked, oh, so how clear are you now about what gets in the way?
Mm-hmm.
And how clear do you want to get to?
Yeah.
What kind of clarity do you want to get
Right.
to?
And what does a clear understanding look like?
What does it look like?
What
And what would that bring you if you understand, if you have a clear understanding and you can keep going? And thank you for that, because the clear understanding may bring confidence, personal confidence. It may bring a freedom to take the risk, whatever that is that seems to get in the way.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And to me, I think this is one of the challenging competencies, and because it's first, and as you say, it's like, oh, okay, what's the theme, and we're going to just go through there and get and follow that track, which we've all done. We've all done it. And it's easy to fall into just doing that. And sometimes the client is not so patient to do that full exploration. They're like, this is on my to-do list and I'm off and running, and come on, let's get to it. And you kind of have to wait, let's hold on. Let's keep going a little deeper, and what's underneath that, and what's underneath that. It's what I call is mining for gold. You're looking
for gold.
Yeah, you're looking for those nuggets.
Yeah.
And you can start to see it and feel it with the client.
Well, and when they start, so this is where we can establish the creative tension between the, how that's feeling right now. I'm upset, I'm frustrated, and so I could ask in this instance, so imagine that you have that clear understanding.
Yeah.
You've got it. What's that going to look like and feel like?
Yeah.
And that helps them create that ideal future state. And now we've got this creative tension that can pull them forward Right. And what will that bring you? And what will that bring you? Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is one of the biggies is stay with establishing agreement and get to that, really peel apart the layers till you find what is it that the client came for in that session. And if it may take time. Number two, what I heard from you is that is coaching. You are using almost all of the competencies.
You're using all the competencies. They're raising their self-awareness,
Mm-hmm.
and they let go of that first, like, no, I just want to design the plan,
Yeah, right.
But what will having the plan do for you? And they're starting to get, like, oh, and they're going down the rabbit hole and going, oh, I'm liking this. This is
Yeah.
this is yeah,
There
it's a
may be,
happening thing,
there's some treasure there at the end. So
And
what
what
was,
we
yeah, go ahead.
what we used to do is we'd get so far with establishing the coaching agreement, and then we would make an assumption, and we would design this masterful, powerful, really great, powerful question that would transition us into the coaching,
Right.
Well, what I now realize is we made an assumption. So that's why that marker is so key. What do you believe you need to address?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not making an assumption on, where.
So the you is the client. What do you need? Focusing again on what they want to get out of it, what they want to take from it. Yeah.
And oftentimes it's not what I thought it would be. It's there lurking underneath that I haven't even seen or heard yet.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and it not making it that it may or may not be lurking, but at least being willing to stick with it and explore more deeply and continue to peel apart the layers until you get to where
there's typically a catharsis when you really get to the underlying. It's like,
yes.
oh, that's what I really want. I want this sense of peace.
Yes.
I want this, it's really
Yes.
intrinsic if you can get that far.
Absolutely. And it's a similar conversation of doing the intake session for the planning and goal setting at the very beginning. You want to really fine tune and get to the heart of what does the client really want to get from this coaching engagement with you.
Yes.
Drill down deeply on each session. And if it takes, you've got an hour in the meeting, and it takes the hour, so be it. So the markers, I'm sorry?
It's worthwhile.
It's absolutely, like you said, I find those some of the most valuable sessions for the clients has been like, wow, I had no idea. I thought I was going over in this direction, and this conversation, I realized that's not what I want at all. This is really the heart of it. So very, very powerful. Again, what I'm hearing from you though, Fran, is that markers have served to clarify the elements, the elements that need to be demonstrated, the evidence. There's a distinction on the qualitative
that's right.
difference at PCC level versus MCC. Also, PCC doesn't have to demonstrate every single one. Are you looking for them all demonstrated at MCC?
No.
Okay.
No. As I said, we're looking for have you established the pattern of showing us that you've mastered this qualitative aspect, right?
Okay.
Is that showing up?
Okay. What other tips? Top tips?
Well, the other tip is creating awareness. It's really putting more intentionality on drilling for the clients, learning about themselves, their self-discovery. And that can happen throughout the conversation, not just a question at the end, which you get points for, but, what's your takeaway or what's your biggest learning? At the very end, the cherry on top.
Right.
This inviting their self-discovery, inviting their noticing, like, oh, what are you noticing about yourself as you said those words? There's opportunities all the way through.
Yes.
Taking it to that next level. For example, when a client has an insight, you can tell they've had a shift and they've had an aha. So rather than moving on from the aha, left kind of hanging in the air, you've just had an insight. What
Yeah.
are you learning about yourself?
Right.
Taking that the next level. What have you just learned about yourself out of that insight, that realization, that discovery that has just emerged for you?
Yeah. And again, I think it's really important to pause in those moments and to point out again, it surprises me how often for us as coaches, we see it. It's like, oh, it's right there. There was this huge shift and there was an aha and wow, did you hear yourself?
Yeah.
But the clients, I find often the clients will just kind of dismiss that. Or they'll move on through or they'll say, you can hear their brain say kind of yes, but, and so it's really, I think, essential for us. And part of our role is to pause, shine that light and say,
Yes, it
did
is.
you hear, did you hear? What?
And not assume that they hurt themselves.
Exactly. And just because we heard it and were impacted and we could see that, not just noticing the shift, but maybe repeating the words or just are in asking, did you hear what you just said?
Yeah.
What, what's there for you?
Yeah. What's
Um,
different?
yeah,
It just occurs to me, Meg, that we're teaching, training, showing our clients how to be self-reflective practitioners, in life. Yeah.
that's a good point. That's a good point. Because I think it's human nature to
Well,
have
a
some
lot
of
of people
those.
aren't used to being self-reflective. This is whole new territory
That's very true. It's
for a
very
lot of
true.
people. Yeah.
And if we've been listening to old tapes over and over and over again, which I know I'm guilty of, we will kind of poo-pah or just ignore some of those signals. And again, that's one of the values of coaching. So I heard establishing agreement, creating awareness, a big one. And if I can mention that, linking it sounds like you're combining that with active listening and direct communication of
Oh, yeah. They're
they're
all.
all integrated, powerful questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It isn't a checklist, is it?
No, no.
Are there any others that you feel are sort of essential ones for or what you're listening for at MCC level?
Well, I'd like to give you my 3 tip
Great.
for coaches. My third one for coaches who are on the path toward the MCC credential, because these are the 3 that I'm noticing as a pattern with all my mentees going for MCC recently. And I say recently in the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been the advent of the markers that has influenced this, how it has influenced our assessing of the exams. And it's this, that really, if the markers are new to you, they came out after you got your PCC, learn them, practice them, really take them on as part of your science of your mastery.
Yes.
Um, really establishing, owning, learning, do your work with the markers and the art of the qualitative with the MCC level. Embrace them both in your practicing your journey
Yeah. Yes.
toward producing those 2 recordings that you're going to submit, really on a tactical level. That's a hot tip.
Okay. Very good. Well, yeah, because I invite people to study the markers, use that sort of as am I demonstrating these as a good self-assessment with
Yes.
layering on that the minimum skills requirements for
Yes,
MCC.
exactly.
And because there are some of these points of distinction of going more deeply, going deeper and wider kind of thing with the conversation, more
Yeah.
of what you said, that qualitative, the state of being, the who, that confidence. So a lot of it is this kind of, I think that's the frustration that many of us on the path have had, is What is that sort of intangible? But this helps with this. The conversation with you today has really helped solidify some of the key pivotal points that assessors are listening for, and to anchor in with the PCC markers is a great place to start, and continuing to practice to where it is that the art of it at the MCC level becomes just unconscious competence.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what we've noticed at the assessor community and ICF a few years ago was that so many people were not passing the MCC, and the words I put on it are because there was a thinking that I've got my PCC, I did my 750 at the time, now 500, and now I've got my 2500, and so now I can apply for MCC, and people weren't passing because they were practicing bad habits for 2,000 hours.
That's right.
Defaults, practices and all of that. And the MCC was always qualitatively different. It always was.
Yeah.
And so now it can stand on the shoulders of the markers, and where the pass rate is up, up, up.
Yes, okay. I've noticed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it also helps that we're having the same client, that I find that the assessors, the coach feels confident in that there's a flow and there's a pattern. And, that used to not be. When I applied for MCC, they wanted different clients. So now being allowed to do the same client, I'm finding that many of the candidates feel confident with one or two particular clients who are doing that transformational work for themselves. Yes. And willing to go there.
Yes. And the requirement, of course, when we realized what was happening with the pass rate, then ICF requiring the 10 hours of mentor coaching. Yes. To put in that course correction to support. And I've had mentees that have just like, oh my God, they discovered they were coaching at the ACC level. And it was a bitter pill to swallow.
Right. Well, I'm the first to admit, though, I have my MCC for a decade now, and they're still I have days where I'm coaching.
Me too. Oh my goodness. I say to myself, oh, thank goodness that wasn't, I didn't have an assessor listening into that conversation.
Exactly. And I'll think, oh, I did one thing well, and then the rest of it. And that's the learning. And I think that, again, that's one of the messages I always say is it's a journey of mastery. It's step by step. And just because you've got an MCC does not mean you go, yay, I've arrived. I'm at the top of the mountain. I'm done. We're all working and learning and growing. Yeah.
Meg, that brings me to something that I would like to add as advice or words of wisdom for someone on the MCC path. Actually, this could be true for MCC as well. And I'll start with narrating a bit of this, that it comes from my noticing the mentees that I love to work with and that I choose to work with, who, when someone calls me and they're interviewing me to be their MCC mentor, what I'm listening for is what they really want is the journey of their personal growth and who they're being as a human being.
Yes.
In life, in the world, in their work. And oh, by the way, that has a grand impact, a positive impact on who they're being, a fundamental impact on who they're being as a coach. That's who I want to work with. And if I don't hear that, I'm not interested in, and I did have an experience of a mentee, years ago, who just wanted the certificate on the wall.
Right.
She
Right.
said, because I always ask, what's your motivation?
Mm-hmm.
That's what opens it up, because I want to hear what their motivation is for the mentoring. And she said, well, I always go to the top of whatever, you know, I get the PhD, I get the this, I get that. I always go to the top of whatever I'm going, and I want to have that MCC. I
Yeah.
want to have a certificate on the wall. And unfortunately, I went ahead and took her on. Big mistake.
I know. I've been there. And first of all, there's no guarantee. Number two, all these things that we've been talking about in this conversation, that qualitative, I think, doesn't come through authentically if all they're looking for is getting that certificate. Just doesn't,
No,
it
you
doesn't
don't have the
resonate.
motivation that gets them there.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
And the assessors hear it, and the assessors hear it as well. And I think that, and again, though, that's part of everybody's journey, isn't it?
It is. It
And
is.
so that was part of hers, and lucky her that she had you as a mentor. So there's still some seeds that were planted. I know that just being in your presence and working with you for those
Oh,
hours
thank you. Thank
was of
you.
value. So as we're wrapping up, one thing that I have to ask you is if you would share for the Wisdom Library, share a bit about your portable mentor and your mentor services, or anything else that
Oh,
any
okay.
other projects that you might have as resources for us.
Oh, thank you. myportablementor.com. That'll get you right to the page. And My Portable Mentor is a series of audios. I move systematically through the competencies, and I actually spend 3 audios on establishing the coaching agreement. Interesting, because this was pre-PCC markers. That's actually.
Right. It was, yeah.
I was influenced by the markers because we had spent 2 years developing them, and they were posted on ICF, a website, in June of 2014, and I launched the My Portable Mentor product in August of 2014. So I know the influence showed up there. So I move systematically through, and it's not so much, I don't do in My Portable Mentor walking through the competencies and what they are and explaining them. That's not what's it about. It's about 20 years of experience, and I'm sharing the wisdom, the top wisdom that I have to share about what's important in demonstrating and being the space for these competencies, each one. So there are 17 audios. There are no more than 15 minutes apiece. And there's also 17 materials, particularly for beginning coaches. They're free. They do have my branding on them, but they're in Word. You can rebrand them for yourselves, cut and paste and use them, to your own benefit. So My Portable Mentor, it's on my website. You can go there.
And we will put we'll put the links in for the resources for sure, because I think it's a great supplement to have to reinforce.
Thank you. And they're downloadable. You can listen to them streaming online, or you can download them for your iPod or whatever. Yeah, so enjoy. I've had testimonies. The latest one there are 2 of them that just tickled me. One was a student in the school where I'm director of training, and she was preparing for her AC, the multiple choice exam.
Oh, the CKA.
The CKA, the multiple choice exam.
Right.
She was preparing for that, and she has test phobia, and she was so nervous. So she said, I listened to Fran's My Portable Mentor because just listening to her voice was so calming for me. It helped me get through the exam.
That's great. I've recommended it to a lot of mentees for that purpose. So I think it's very, very helpful. I love hearing your voice, but I miss seeing your shining face. So
Oh,
I'm waiting for the video series to come out. That's
and that's next.
yeah.
I'm now developing standing on the shoulders of my portable mentor, and it's so basic that beginning coaches and master coaches at the experience levels continue to get value and
Right.
benefit, and I've heard that it really helps them before they apply for their exams and so forth. So that's not going away. What I'm preparing is the video series on the PCC markers and the MCC qualitative. So much of, you've had a taste today of much of the flavor of what that one's going to be about. And I will include demos in this new series, and it's called Coaching Wisdom Mentoring.
Oh, that's so exciting. I love it. I love it.
That's
Well,
coming.
we look forward to that very much. And I know you'll keep us posted on that. And you're so generous of your time and your wisdom and your passion. Thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing. And I look
You're a
forward.
passion sister.
Absolutely. It's great. It's great to
Thanks,
have
Meg.
have you on the path together with me. And I look forward
Thank
to
you.
our next connection, which I hope will be very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.